All right, well, I'm Margot Purdy, the career coach for the College of Engineering, and this conversation today is going to focus on salary negotiation. Before we dive into salary negotiation, I do want to take a quick moment to remind you of the resources available to you students and alumni here at UT Tyler from the Office of Career Success. You have access to a designated career coach like myself who can help you with every stage of the job search process, career planning, building your resume, preparing for interviews, and salary negotiation. Let me take a second to introduce you to our fantastic team. We have Brian Naus in the Souls College of Business, Pam Rodriguez in the College of Education and Psychology, myself in the College of Engineering, Desmond Dean in the in the School of Nursing and School of Health Professions, Gabby Vasquez in the School of Nursing and School of Health Professions, and currently in the College of Arts and Sciences, we are interviewing to fill a vacancy for a coach in that position, but we will be getting that filled soon. All right, let's get started. Let me give you a quick roadmap of what we'll be covering in today's session. I've broken things down into 6 key areas. The do's and don'ts of salary negotiation. We'll start with some foundational tips, what to aim for, what to avoid during the negotiation process. Effective strategies. These are practical responses and approaches for real-world situations you may encounter, especially about when and how to discuss compensation. Key considerations, we'll talk about things to keep in mind when evaluating offers beyond the salary number. Timing tips, because when you negotiate is just as important as how you negotiate. Navigating tough situations, how to handle those moments when things get awkward or uncomfortable without losing your cool or losing your leverage. And lastly, confidence boosters, tools and techniques to help you feel more self-assured going through these conversations. All right, let's start and talk about what you should do during salary negotiations. Do your research. You want to come to the table informed. What's the typical pay for this position in that geographical area? Next, stay positive and collaborative by using the we language. You're working with the employer to find a mutual fit, not making demands. The goal is to position yourself as a partner in the conversation, not just someone asking for more money. Understand what they're looking for. And even more importantly, understand what you bring to the table. Be familiar with their expectations and your skills. And finally, know your worth, but also be realistic. This is about balance. What are you bringing to the role that aligns with the company's needs? The overall mindset here is to stay empowered and professional. Now, let's talk about what not to do when talking salary with prospective employers. Try not to be the first to mention the amount. Instead, deflect. I know you're thinking, but how do I do that? Hang tight. I'm going to give you some strategies and verbiage for this in a minute. Don't accept the first offer or accept the offer immediately. Sometimes that's hard to do when you're excited, but always thank the employer for the offer, show appreciation and excitement, and then ask for time to think it over. Don't focus solely on the salary amount. Consider other benefits like medical coverage, health insurance, retirement plans, paid time off. Never make it personal by discussing your own financial needs. Saying things like, I'm going to need more money to pay my bills is a big don't. All right. First, before we go into effective strategies and different scenarios, I want to share that pay transparency laws require employers to disclose salary information with the goal to promote fairness, reduce wage gaps, and empower employees to make informed decisions. However, there are currently only 17 states with pay transparency laws that require employers to disclose salary ranges in the job postings or upon request. The good news is Texas, Florida, and Georgia currently have draft bills under review, but without pay transparency law, it becomes more challenging for the job seeker. So if you are currently planning to stay in Texas, they are not required to post it and they're not required to disclose it until they make an offer. Okay, so now that you know that, let's talk about some effective strategies for salary negotiation. Okay, scenario number one. You're in an interview and the pay and salary has not been disclosed on the job description, and the interviewer asks you, what are your salary expectations? First, try to deflect before you answer by asking the employer, can you share what the salary range is for this position? If they share the range with you, then you could follow up with, what skills and experience puts a candidate at the top versus the bottom of this range? This will give you an idea of how to answer and gives you a chance to speak to those skills throughout the interview process. Now, it's very possible they won't give you a range and they'll put it back on you to state your salary expectation. This is why doing your research before the interview is so important. If you are to put this, if you put in the position, you might choose to say, in my research, I found the typical pay range is XX to YY for this position. Stay tuned because I have some other strategies and options you can use. Pro tip, never say to the prospective employer, I don't know, or randomly throw out a number. You could potentially shortchange yourself or overshoot and take yourself out of the running of the position altogether. Okay, scenario number two. Let's say the salary range is posted in the job description. This gives you an opening. You could start by saying, I see there is a salary range listed for the position. Can you share what skills or experiences would put a candidate at the top versus the bottom of that range? Again, you're inviting them to share more about their expectations. This can guide you in highlighting the relevant skills you bring to the table and accomplishments you've achieved throughout the interview. Pro tip, don't say, I saw the range and I need to be at the top. That can come off as inflexible and demanding. Instead, use the range as a conversation starter and focus on connecting your value to their needs. And depending on the flow of the interview, this might be something you bring up toward the end of the first round interview rather than leading with it. Okay, scenario number three. The salary may or may not be posted, and the employer asks, what are your salary expectations? You have a couple of options here. You could say, I prefer to not disclose my expectations at this time. And if the salary was not disclosed, you could add, would you be able to share the salary range for this position? Or you could respond, I'm looking for fair compensation aligned with my experience. If you're a new graduate and don't have a lot of experience, use the term aligned with my skill set and knowledge in place of experience. Again, you don't want to shortchange yourself and you're trying to avoid giving a number first. Pro tip, never say my current salary is XX or I would like to be at YY. Keep the conversation focused on what skills and experience and knowledge you're bringing to the position. Okay, scenario number four. Let's say the employer asks again, what are your salary expectations? You've already tried deflecting or asking them about the range, but now they're pressing a little bit harder for you to give a number. What can you do? And I'm going to tell you this happens a lot. Here's a great response. In my research, I found that this type of position in XYZ geographical area typically pays around XX amount, depending on experience and qualifications. This response does a few things. It shows you've done your homework. It keeps the tone professional and informed, and you're not just pulling numbers from the air. But most importantly, it shifts the focus back to the market rather than your personal needs. Resist the urge to say, I'd expect to be at XX amount or my current salary is XYZ. You could unintentionally place yourself too low or limit your flexibility. You might be underselling yourself without even realizing it. Okay, let's upgrade your negotiation language. Swap emotional or reactive statements for confident, informed phrasing. Your goal is to show professionalism, preparation, and flexibility. Here are some examples of professional verbiage to use in your negotiations. Don't say, that salary is too low. Instead, say, based on my research, I was hoping for a range closer to, and then state a range. Don't say, I can't live on that. Instead, say, to make this move sustainable, I'd need to be at, and then state a range. Don't just say state one number, state a range that you found in your research. Don't say, that's all you can offer. Instead, say, is there flexibility in the compensation package? And don't say, I need more money. Instead, say, if we could meet at XYZ, I'd be thrilled to move forward with this offer. Okay, let's talk about salary research tools. Here are some sites you can use to prepare for your negotiation. Salary.com is based on employer supplied data. This is important because of the accuracy and reliability, comprehensive view of the market, and competitive pay benchmarks. Glassdoor.com is based on employee reviews and insights. So keep in mind that the salaries provided typically include the cost of benefits into the amount that you see when you do your search. This could potentially inflate what the actual pay is for the position. And of course, now with AI, chat tools such as ChatGPT, Microsoft Office Copilot, or Google Gemini, these pull data from multiple resources, including Glassdoor and Salary.com, but also from the US labor force and state workforce data. These tools help you set realistic expectations based on geography and industry trends. But remember, you're not just looking at salary, you also have to consider the total compensation and cost of living. And by total compensation, I mean health benefits, retirement plans, paid time off, and your salary, bonuses, those kinds of things. And also consider that a $70,000 a year job in New York City is not going to be the same as a $70,000 a year job in Dallas, Texas. So keep those contexts in mind when you're preparing your ask. Okay. If you just hopped on or hopped on after I got started, you can scan the QR code to check in while I switch screens because I'm going to show you how to do some search in AI. If for some reason the QR code is not working, feel free to drop your Patriot email in the chat and we will grab that for you. All right, so I'm going to use Microsoft Copilot because the university, that's their preferred AI that we use. And I'm going to ask for total compensation package for an entry-level registered nurse in Dallas, Texas. And if you want to drop a position and a location in the chat while I'm checking this one. Feel free. Okay. So you can see this is pulling data from multiple places, which makes it super easy for you. Because salary.com, you have to sign up for a trial use, and then they'll start charging you. It is a very good site, but eventually you do have to pay. And Glassdoor, it's good, but I think it confuses people with the total compensation package. And because it is employee reported, it is a tool and it's a reliable tool, but it's not coming from the actual companies and the workforce labor. So I feel like this is a great tool to use. It's easy, it's accessible to everybody. So an entry-level registered nurse in Dallas typically earns 63,000 plus to 72,000 plus per year in base salary. And total compensation, which would include overtime, bonuses, and differentials for shift differentials, commonly reaches 70,000 to 95 plus thousand per year. Now this is Dallas, but you can see it also tells you where they're pulling this information from, and these are reliable sources. Then it tells you a realistic base salary range in Dallas would be 63,000 to 73,000. And again, these are for entry level registered nurse positions. It breaks it down to what the hourly pay would be, gives you the average, and then it tells you what you could potentially earn in overtime, bonuses, and differentials. Okay, Gabby, do we have anybody in the chat asking for me any specific search?
Yes, we have a request for civil engineering in Athens, Texas.
Okay, so your summary states that an Athens, Texas, an entry-level civil engineer typically earns between 33 plus thousand and 61 plus thousand per year, with most true beginners starting near the low to mid range of that. Then it gives you the breakdown. Base salary. The average is going to be around 61,000 per year, with the range being 48 to 80,000 per year. That is a low range, but my question to the audience would be, is Athens, Texas a large town? It's not. So the further you get from bigger cities or metropolitan type areas like Tyler, if you go to these smaller towns, the salaries are going to be adjusted because the towns are smaller and the companies may be smaller. So those are all things to consider. But guess what else is probably lower? The cost of living. Then it shows that it pulled from, and I want to point out the difference. So talent.com showed the average as 35,000 plus a year. Glassdoor reports it as 91. Remember, Glassdoor is total compensation package and it's employee reported. So the number of reports on a salary are probably not as high in Glassdoor. That's the other thing to consider. And a realistic expectation for a true entry-level civil engineer in Athens would be 33,000 to 55,000 per year, with the total compensation package including the base salary, health insurance, retirement, paid time off, potential bonuses. Okay, any other requests?
We have a few, actually. The next one is for a quality assurance manager senior in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania.
How do you spell that?
Mechanics, so mechanic with an S, and then Burg, Burg, and then Pennsylvania.
Got it. Thank you. So centered around base salary, 145 plus thousand to 168 plus thousand, with some roles offering ranges as wide as 86 to 167,000, depending on employer, experience, and scope. This is considered a higher level position. The base salary from salary.com says the median range is about 158 plus thousand a year. Salary.com says the range is 145 plus to 168,000 plus. Gallagher Careers has an even different range. And again, industry with engineering, I will say industry plays a big part. So obviously, larger companies that do big manufacturing are going to pay more than the healthcare industry. So you kind of have to factor all that in as well. And then benefits and incentives, it kind of lays out these are the common benefits that you'll get. This doesn't usually change, too much unless you start changing industries. And then it's saying a realistic total compensation estimate would be 165,000 to 210,000 per year. And that's again including the benefits because that's total compensation. And I always tell students, depending on if you're only going to need benefits for yourself or if you have a spouse or a family, that's adding on 8,000 plus to your salary. Because if you're going to carry coverage for an entire family, health coverage for an entire family, that costs the employer quite a bit of money. You don't see that. You're just paying your premium, but that plus your retirement, plus paid time off, vision, dental, all that stuff, you can add anywhere from 8,000 on up to close to 20,000, possibly more, depending on where you live. And though you'd like to see that in your paycheck, we all need that to live day to day, right? So it is very valuable. And it's important to remember that. All right, we have time for one more, Gabby.
All right. Our last one is going to be a project manager in Houston, Texas.
Any type of field or industry?
Um, let's see. Rebecca, do you have a field or an industry for your project manager? She says oil and gas.
Hi, Rebecca. I know who this is. Okay, so a typical oil and gas project manager in the Houston, Texas area earns a total compensation package, that's benefits and everything, of a base salary of so base salary would be 105,000 on upwards to 138,000, with the average ranging 117 plus to 136 plus. Total compensation, you're going to add entry level. Now this is going to drop for entry level. It's going to drop a little bit below 100. And then if you're like mid-range career professional, it's going to go up. And then top earners, it's going to go up. A realistic base salary would be 115,000 to 140,000. And Bonuses and incentives, I was just going to say this without reading what they wrote about it. A lot of times in oil and gas, they do have bonuses, they offer profit sharing and shift differential sometimes or overtime pay. So that's probably factored in, especially with some of those bigger oil and gas companies. And then, of course, they're going to have amazing benefits, health, dental, 401ks, the retirement plans, paid time off, and different types of insurance coverages. So you could expect a total compensation of low 100s to high 100s per year. All right. Well, hopefully that was enough example to kind of guide you on what you want to look for. But the more information you can put in, and you can also pare it down. You can start off basic and then add information. And you know how Chat GPT works. It'll ask you, do you want me to expand on? Utilize those tools because it really does help. All right. So let's talk timing tips and key things to consider for your salary negotiation. Well, be aware of market trends. For example, if there's a high demand for your skill or your major, it's a good time to negotiate. But if you're in a time period where there isn't a high demand, you're not going to have as much leverage. We've talked about the importance of knowing your worth, but being open to negotiation is very important. You know what is most important to you and know where you're willing to compromise. You don't ever want to put yourself in a situation where you're going to be struggling to make it from paycheck to paycheck, but you also have to be reasonable. So this is why it's so important to do your research on everything from the base salary to compensation to the geographical area and to the cost of living of where this position is located. The best time to negotiate is after you've received a formal offer and before you've accepted. That's the key time to do your negotiation. This is when you're going to have the most leverage. And trust your gut. If you feel that the employer is unhappy that you're trying to further negotiations, it's best to back off. For example, prepare all your asks before you counter and ask for everything at the same time. Don't ask for more money. The employer accommodates and increases the salary, and then go back and say, well, can I also get additional paid time off? Be organized in your counter and bring all your asks at once. At the same time, don't be unreasonable and ask for too much. Remember to be flexible, and there has to be compromise on both sides. Once you've agreed on the terms, make sure you get the final offer in writing to avoid any misunderstandings. The written offer should include, but is not limited to, start date, position title, location, and agreed upon salary. All right, let's talk some confidence boosters because salary negotiation is hard. It's you're having to advocate for yourself. You've already had to sell yourself to get the job and really market the skills that you're bringing to the table. And now it's about the money and the benefits, right? And it's hard. So, and it's uncomfortable. Let's talk about some confidence boosters. Here are some tips on how to navigate these situations. Maintain professionalism at all times. Ensure that your interactions remain courteous and avoid letting emotions or stress or confrontations take over. And when people are talking about money, that's easy to happen. So you really have to make an effort to maintain that professionalism. Be ethical. Once you've accepted a job offer and signed an offer letter, don't continue pursuing other positions or interviewing with other companies. Even if you already have another interview scheduled, if you formally accept a position, you need to cancel the other interview. Avoid leveraging multiple offers. Trying to play one offer against another can backfire and potentially cost you both opportunities. So be very careful in those situations. And be open about other offers, especially if time is ticking. Usually you have a deadline where you have to accept an offer by a certain date, time. So if you have another offer that you might accept, communicate this clearly to the interested employer. Being transparent about additional offers lets the employer understand the timeline you're working with. And if they're interested in moving forward with you, it will help them expedite next steps more quickly. Oh, I got ahead of myself. I was talking navigating tough situations under confidence boosters. Sorry about that. Confidence boosters, preparation is key. Prepare thoroughly. Knowledge is power. And the more prepared you are, the more confident you will feel. So that research really comes in handy to helping you feel more confident. Practice, 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 practice. Role play the negotiation with your career coach, a mentor, parent. Practicing will help you feel more comfortable and confident. And stay calm. That professionalism and staying calm is critical. I know it's nerve-wracking, but when you feel those nerves creeping in, take a deep breath, pause, and take a moment to collect your thoughts. This is going to sound silly to some, but visualize success. Picture yourself speaking clearly, confidently, and achieving your desired outcome. It really does work. Stand in front of the mirror. You ever heard that saying, stand in front of the mirror and pose like a superhero? Try it. It works. But picture yourself speaking confidently, clearly, and again, being confident in your worth and knowing what skills you bring to the table will really help you be more confident. And remember, your career coaches are here to help you through this process of salary negotiation. So be sure to reach out to us. We'll help you. Sometimes you don't have a lot of time. If you can't find an appointment, shoot us an email so that we can find a way to squeeze in a few minutes to help you. What questions do you have for me? You can type them in the chat and Gabby will read them.
So we have two questions already in the chat. The first one is, how do I deal with salary negotiation if a pre-interview question were sent to be answered and returned in written form?
Is one of the pre-interview questions, what salary do you expect?
I would assume so.
Okay, well, you need to do your research. This is where the research is going to come in handy. So research the position title, um, the geographical area, the industry, and even you could do a search on what that company typically pays and see what that generates for you. Um, and then do a range. Don't do it, just do one number. Put it in as a range. And if you do your research, you should be within a range that's reasonable. That should be okay. Where people usually get in trouble is when they just throw out a number or they think this is what I need to make and it's really far off the mark. Then they take themselves out of the running before they even get an actual phone or virtual or in-person interview. That's a good question.
Very good. Our second one is, does the salary range provided on Copilot include other benefits like per diem, uplift, or always basic pay figure?
Well, it breaks it out. And if a position has per diem, like for nurses that work per diem, you'd probably want to ask AI can you provide a per diem rate? I know that one of the ones it did pull out what an hourly rate is, and I'm guessing that that might play into per diem, but you could ask it specifically, what is a per diem rate? And
Okay.
see what it generates. And it'll probably give you a decent um, range.
Okay. Our third one comes from a student who missed the last 2 points on timing tips, and they're asking if you could go back for a quick second.
I sure can. It was the trust your gut. If you feel the employer is unhappy that you keep pushing to negotiate, trust your instincts and back off because you don't want to irritate them before you even start the job or accept the job. And then once you've agreed on the terms, ensure you get the final offer in writing to avoid any misunderstandings. That's really important. And typically you should be signing an offer.
Okay. And then our next one, we have a few questions actually coming in. Our next one is what stats or growth in the program should be included when going for a promotion in a nonprofit organization as a program coordinator?
What stats and growth in the program? Um, I'm not sure I understand what you're asking. Are you asking compensation wise or title or I'm not sure what you're asking.
Um, i.e., number of inquiries since I started. Hmm.
Um, is that part of your current job description? Making inquiries? Oh, I get what you're asking. Yes, the impact and contributions you've made in your current role and you're going for a promotion. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I got you. As many as possible. Keep track of that and honestly, you probably have an annual evaluation. You should be including those in your annual evaluation. Nobody's going to advocate for you like you. And yes, if you are going for a promotion or you're getting an annual evaluation, you should absolutely be including all of that stuff because most managers have multiple people that report to them and they can't remember and keep up with everything. That's your responsibility to do that. That's an excellent question. So yes, I don't think there's too many. If you've done a lot, you need to list them. That's that's my opinion.
Okay. What can I say or how can I deflect when being asked how much I currently make?
That's a good question. And honestly, you're not obligated to disclose that. You can say something along the lines of, I'd rather not disclose that at this time. And depending on where you are in the interview process, if it's fairly early or in the middle, you could say, I'd rather not disclose it at this time. I'd rather continue through the interview and see if we both feel this is a good mutual fit. But even at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, you don't ever have to disclose what you currently make. And you could say something like, if they point blank say, what's your current salary? You could say, um, I'd really rather not disclose that and leave it at that and just say it nicely and politely. You're not obligated to disclose it. So you could just nicely say, I prefer not to disclose that. Now, if you work for a government agency or a state institution or something like that, that's public information. So, but yeah, you're not obligated to disclose that ever.
Okay. Our next one is I need help with my resume. How do I contact someone?
You can go into Handshake and it'll go to Career Center and appointments and schedule an appointment, or you can email your designated career coach and they will help you.
Okay. Our next one is, are there any red flags to look out for? If an offer might be too good to be true or seems predatory to new workers slash entry level jobs.
Um, I always tell my students in the College of Engineering, if something seems too good to be true, or you have any red flags, whether it's before you go on an interview or with an offer, to please come see me. So, whatever your major is, please go see your career coach because we can do some digging to find out if the company's legit, what their reputation is, etc. And I always say, if you ever have a gut feeling or feel like there's any red flags, there's probably something to it. So please let us help you look into that. And there are scammers out there, so it's good to be cautious. And if anybody's ever asking for you to provide personal information in the interview process or before they make you an offer, that's a red flag. The only Your hiring manager doesn't even need to know your street address or your driver's license number or anything. That all gets done on an e-form with HR. So yeah, you need to be careful and please go to your career coach because we will help you look into that.
Okay. And then our last two are just about wondering if there will be a recording, if the students can receive a copy of the slides, and then also how to find more information about career coaches.
Okay. Um, yes, this is recorded. We will email it out once it's converted to a YouTube video. All the coaches will email those out, will email the link out to the students. Um, the slides are in the recording. I don't typically send out the slides. I mean, I can. I think that's okay.
I think the recording has the
I
slides, so it's okay.
yeah.
And
And the
then,
more information about the coaches. So, the Office of Career Success is located in the UC on the third floor. You can get information there. We have posters all over campus. You should be receiving pretty regular emails or a newsletter from your career coach. Um, so you probably, if you look in your email, can pull up and you'll see something. I know the School of Nursing has a Canvas location where all their information is put. My students get an email from me every Tuesday, sometimes more often than that. I send a newsletter every Tuesday and then also job postings when those come out. But in your college, there should be information. And if you are remote, you can go to the Career Success website at UT Tyler Career Success and find your coach information there. And also the link to schedule an appointment.
very good. And that's our last question.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining today. I hope you found this helpful. And we coaches will get the recording sent out to you as soon as we have it converted, probably in the next day or so. And wish you all the best in your job search and negotiating for that top salary.